Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sumukascha Ekadantascha Kapilo Gajakarnakaha Lambodharascha Vikato Vignarajo Vinayakaha Dhumaketurganadhyakshaha Palachandro Gajananaha Vakratundaha Surpakarno Herambah Skandapurvadaha Sutlambaradharam Vishnum Safivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvavignopasantaye Yattvardavaktradyah Parishadhyah Parastatam Vignam Nignanti Satatam Vishvaktenam Tamastraye Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheswaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Satchidananda Rupaya Krishnaya Aklishtakarine Namo Vedanta Vedhyaya Gurave Buddhi Sakshine Krishna Dvaipaya Namjasam Sarvabhuta Hite Ratam Vedabhya Bhaskaram Bande Samadhi Nilayam Munim Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Now, with Bhagavan's grace, we concluded second Skandam in our last session, and with His grace, we will take up third Skandam today. And the third Skandam actually has 31 chapters. And it's a very long Skandam, Skandam. And even though Sukha Muni is explaining to Parikshit and answering his question, the Skandam itself consists of two long quotations by Sukha Muni of the dialogues that took place between Uddhava and Vidura, and then between Vidura and Maitreya. Then it is in between, of course, there are worship slokas by Sukha, and then questions and remarks by Parikshit, as Parikshit is listening to this narration. The beginning of the Skandha is a meeting between Vidura, who was the uncle of the Pandavas. Vidura goes on a pilgrimage, and then there he meets with Uddhava. Uddhava, the great friend of Krishna, Sri Krishna, and he was going to Badri after Sri Krishna left his body, and on that way, Vidura meets with Uddhava, and then Uddhava tells him of the destruction of the Yadava clan and how Sri Krishna left his body and entered his avataram. Then Uddhava gives a somewhat detailed and very highly devotional review of Sri Krishna's life and the stories and glories of Krishna, the life and doings, the various things he did. Then Uddhava then goes to Badri according to the instruction he received from Krishna. Then he also tells Vidura Sri Krishna's advice that Vidura should go to sage Maitreya and then learn from him the Atma Vidya. And then this is followed in the third Skandam by a very long conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. It covers basically 21 chapters. Of the total of 21 chapters are devoted to the conversation, the dialogue between Maitreya and Vidura. And then this conversation also goes into fourth Skandam. Now, what are the topics that are discussed in these chapters? Primarily, the thing talks about Sargam. Sargam is primary creation, and it's given in great detail. And then it also, subject matter is also covered, is also Visarga, which is the secondary creation. We saw that very briefly. Sukha Muni explained that very briefly earlier. It's going to be covered in details. Then there is the Varaha Avataram is described. Then the various measurements of time and space and the circumstances that led to the birth of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakasipu, and how Hiranyaksha was killed in destruction of Hiranyaksha, and then the story of Kardama Prajapati. And the Kardama Prajapati story is given, and then that segues into the birth of Kapila. Kapila is also an avatar of Bhagavan. Okay, Kapila. Now, interestingly, the Kapila avataram, the Kapila actually teaches his own mother, Devahuti, on the Atma Vidya, on the knowledge of Prema and Jnanam. Jnanam and Prema, the Bhakti. Then, so quite a bit of Sargam, Visargam, and all these stories are covered. Then the Sarga is translated, it be translated as a primary creation. It's really a natural evolution of the fundamental categories from Prakriti. Now, with the material from Prakriti, Brahma, the creative aspect, works for the production of the various discrete forms, as we saw earlier, myriad varieties of forms and shapes and colors. And that the aspect, the creative aspect, the work by the creation done by the creative aspect, which is really in our mind, which is what it's all creating. That's called Visarga. We saw this earlier briefly. Now, Sarga itself, the Sargam itself takes place at the end of Prakrita Pralaya. The Prakriti is when the three gunas are in equilibrium. Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic gunas are in equilibrium. When that equilibrium is disturbed, then that creation, that Sargam takes place. Now, the disturbance takes place by the combined force of, as we saw earlier, Kalam, which is time, Karma, and then Swabhavam. The Swabhavam is nothing but Prema. Please remember that. So, once the equilibrium is disturbed, of equilibrium of Prakriti, the equilibrium of the three gunas are disturbed, then 24 categories are created. 24 categories. What are these 24 categories? One is the Mahat Tattvam, which is the operating principle of giving love and receiving love. That's the only reason this creation takes place. That's the operating principle. Then there's Ahamkara, which we all know. Then there is Buddhi. The Ahamkaram is when I falsely associate myself with my body and mind and Buddhi and all that instead of my own Atma or Hridayam. So that is Ahamkaram. Buddhi is the discriminating faculty that each one of us have. Manas is nothing but a bundle of desires. So that is 4. Mahat Tattvam, Ahamkaram, Buddhi, and then Manas. Then there is the Jnana Indriyangal, the senses, the organs of perception, right? That we know what those 5 are. Then there are 5, the Karma Indriyangal, the organs of action. We also know what those are. Then the Panchabhutangal, the 5 elements, natural elements. We also know what those are. And then the Tanmatrais, the quality of each of these 5 elements which correspond to the 5 senses of perception that we have. So total is 24. And this is very elaborately described in Kapila Upadesam to Devahuti in chapter 26 of this Skandam. Now, I'll skip this. There's in Sargam, we think about evolution and all that. Remember, in modern science, we talk of evolution. The Sargam takes place as a course of time. Everything has a certain time component to it. This is very important to understand. Okay, and then when the 24 categories were created, as we saw earlier, they all remained separate. But the thing that integrated and brought them together is basically the divine will, or the Swabhavam, which is Prema. The Swabhavam is a fundamental. Then the Prema. Then Mahat Tattvam came from there, which is the desire to give love and receive love. That made the operating principle. That's why Sargam, all these creations takes place. Then we also saw, after practicing tapas for a very long time, Brahma was blessed by the Supreme Being, and then he was asked to start the work of creation, which means the creative aspect was authorized, was asked to start its work. Now, that work that is taking place even this moment in our mind is what Brahma is, that creative aspect. That I think is called Visargam, because each one of us creates so many forms and types and shapes and opinions, thoughts, feelings, emotions, ambitions. Whatever we call it, it's all being created in our mind. And that is the Visargam that is taking place. So again, that is dynamic process. And then when this creative aspect, Brahma started creating, he didn't have any particular plan or he had no idea of what to do. So what the creative aspect really does is to follow the plan of the previous cycle in the ambit of time. Whatever the way the previous creation was, that is what's being repeated. And then the first one to come out of Brahma's will. See, very interesting when we talk about creation. We're going to talk about how things appear. Sometimes it appears from the mind, like from the willpower. Sometimes it comes from the body, and only later on this sexual reproduction thing came about. That's what we see very summarily. We see now it being covered in the Skandam. First, Bhagavan with Brahma's will, the first thing to be created that came out were the Chatvaris, the four sages known as the Kumaras. Okay, and then that is the Sanatana, Sanat Kumara, Sanandana, and Sanaka. Right, those are the four people. And then the whole idea was, the creative aspect was, the charge is to create people, not only human beings, but create beings. That was the charge, the progeny, procreation. That is the fundamental operating principle. That's why we have, every being has got this natural urge to create, to procreate, okay? That is a fundamental operating principle. So, when the Chatvaris, the four Kumaras, were commanded to go and multiply their species, and they naturally declined because they were always in Brahmatattvam. They were always in oneness. To create something, you need two entities. You need the attracting element and you need the attracted element. One entity has to attract and the other entity has to be attracted to it. Then only the creation can take place. But for that you need a sense of separation. But the Chatvaris, they were absolutely always in oneness in Brahman, and so they didn't have any feeling of separation. They were renunciations and they were full of bhakti. So they refused. They said, Swami, we can't do this. This is something we cannot do. Because they were leading ascetic life, basically in Brahmanyana all the time. Now, this refusal of the Chatvaris created anger in Brahma. Now, out of that anger came Rudra. Now, Rudra was commanded now to multiply the species, which he did. And he brought large numbers of terrific beings like himself. Right? These are the various aspects that we see in our life. Is nothing but Rudra is something. The meaning of Rudra is just not anger, it's just not violence, it's not cruelty. It is the that aspect that makes you cry. When you achieve it, it actually cry. When we achieve all our objectives in life, in this life, and actually we are not happy at the end of it, right? Because there is always fear of loss. There is always that followed by certain sorrow. So and then at the end of our life, we go way up having wasted our life. That aspect of making you cry is Rudra. And another aspect of Rudra is also the one who removes my tears and my sorrows and all that. Both are actually Rudras. It's like having a pain and then the pain gets removed. Both are Rudras. So lots of Rudra brought out large numbers of people, terrific beings like himself. So then Brahma asked him to withdraw, to stop that creation. And then Brahma willed, out of his will itself. Please remember that out of his will, the Sankalpam, as it is called in Sanskrit, 10 Prajapatis were created. Marichi, Atri, Angiras, Pulasthyar, Pulahar, Kratu, Bhrigu, Vasishta, Daksha, and Narada. These are the 10 Prajapatis. Prajapati, that means these people were charged with procreation, to multiply. Out of the 10, Narada was the only one, because Narada took to asceticism. He was a saint. All the other 9 actually were engaged in procreation and in multiplication, which is the basic reason of Sargam. Now, the Brahma's mood. Now, creative aspect means it is also got its rumor. It is to do with mind. Mind means it is to do with desires. So, the moment you have desires, the moods change. We all know that. Each one of us experiences this, right? I experience it all the time. The mood keeps on changing depending on the desires, right? And whether they get fulfilled or not, or so many things, right? Each one of us, our mood keeps changing. But then this Brahma is no different. From his changing moods of Brahma, various other species got created. These were the Asuras, Gandharvas, Pitrus, Bhutas, Pisachas, Kinnaras, Kimpurusha, etc., etc., etc. But with all these various multiplication and creations of being going on, things still it was not going fast enough. So Brahma was charged now with the charter is to procreate, to multiply. That's all the charter is, to create. But it was not going fast enough. So he was sitting in a very highly dissatisfied mood. At that time, from his body emerged a man and a woman. The man is called Swayambhuva Manu, because it came from Brahma's mind. That is why it's called Manu. Swayambhuva Manu, because it came by itself. And then the other entity, basically Brahma split himself into 2, okay, to put it in another way. One was the Swayambhuva Manu, and the other one was the Satharupa. Now it is called Satharupa. The one was the attracted element, the entity, which is the Swayambhuva Manu. The attracting entity, element, because it attracted in 100 different ways, it was called Satharupa. These were the progenitors of man. Okay, these are the 2. And this is the first reproduction on the basis of sexual reproduction. So the previous ones were all Manasika Putra. It's out of Sankalpam, and out of the coming from the body itself, out of the will of Brahma. Many things were created. But this particular creation from Swayambhuva Manu and Satharupa was the very first one where the procreation, the multiplication of species started taking place on the basis of what we call today as a sexual reproduction. So it multiplied much faster. And then the last species to come out of Brahma's mood is the rishis, and with tremendous spiritual faculties. Then, in 10th chapter of this of this Skandam, it talks about the 9 aspects of creation, out of which 6 aspects refer to the Sargam and 3 to Visargam. And the Visargam, again remember, or the creation by Brahma is called Visargam. And prior to Brahma, the creation of those 24 aspects that we talked about, that we mentioned, that is Sargam. And prior to Sargam, there was only Prakriti. All the 3 gunas were in absolute equilibrium. So what was there available? There were time, there was karma, there was Prakriti. These were the 3. Underlying and encompassing on all this, as part of all this, was Svabhavam, which is Bhagavan Prema Swarup, Prema itself. So from there, in Visargam, in Brahma's creation, the first one was what we call as unmoving entities, or plants, for example. And there are 6 items of this unmoving type of entities in creations are mentioned in chapter 10. And then second was the animals and birds. There were 28 species or named. And then the third was man, and addicted to desire-prompted work in the creation. At the head of all the human species are the rishis. They are capable of samadhi, yoga, tapas, nobility, and absolute detachment. The devas include pitrus, asuras, gandharvas, apsaras. They're all in the visarga aspect. Now, as part of this, while this is going on, this Skandam also details, very interestingly, the computation of time as well as space. Now, the first measurement, how is the time measured? It's not through the clock that we carry and the atomic clock and all that. No. You got to go back. How do you actually measure time? Because this fundamental principle of measurement of time is the unit for the invisible to become visible. Okay, that is how this thing starts. It starts with Paramanu Kala and all that we will go through in detail. And then Viparartham, the huge measurement from a tiniest unit of measurement of time, which actually measures the time for the invisible to become visible and also for the visible to become invisible. Okay, that's a fundamental measurement. And from that minutest aspect, the computation of time goes into divine years, Viprarada, talking of lifespan of Brahma. These are mind-boggling numbers that we will see in the Skandam, and they are discussed in chapter 11. Then the last section, chapter 25 to 31, details the spiritual instruction on bhakti and jnanam by Avatara Purushan, by Kapila, to his mother Devahuti. And it's a very comprehensive, but at the same time, very concise discussion of bhakti and jnanam. And it is also, this discussion, this teaching is also very practical in the sense it sets a stage to understand and appreciate the cosmological, the themes of Bhagavatam itself. Then, in the 11th Skandam, which is now we won't cover here, that's 11th Skandam itself, comes towards the end of this Bhagavatam book, where Krishna instructs Uddhava in detail. And that is also like what we call as Bhagavad Gita. It's a beautiful spiritual teaching on jnana and bhakti. Now, back to this Skandam, in the 8th chapter of this Skandam, we get an idea of how the Bhagavatam came about. We saw how Srimad Narayana taught that to Brahma, and Brahma taught that to Narada, and Narada to Vyasa, and Vyasa was teaching that to Sutta Muni and all that. Then Sukha Muni happened to listen to it, and then he taught that to Parikshit, and through that we are all getting it. That is one way. Another way is also described here in this particular Skandam of how the Sankarshna, Bhagavan Sankarshna, revealed the Bhagavata to Sanat Kumara. You remember the first Chatvaris. Then the Sanat Kumara taught that to Rishi Sankyayana. Okay, Sankyayana, Rishi Sankyayana, and he was a great Paramahamsa. Then he taught that to Parasara. And then, because Parasara was his disciple, and Parasara, Pulastya, remember one of the first 10 Prajapatis, Pulastya instructed Parasara to Maitreya at the command of Pulastya. Pulastya, by the way, is the grandfather of Ravana. Okay, and so that Pulastya asked Parasara to instruct, to teach this Bhagavatam to Maitreya. So there is another way this Bhagavatam has come about that is described in this particular skandam. So that is what is in front of us as we take this skandam consisting of 31 chapters, and very beautiful skandam it is. We're going to see the life story of Krishna himself, which everyone is waiting for, and then in between there is this intellectual, to satisfy intellectual curiosity of time and space and all that. All those will be mentioned. These are mind-boggling. How the rishis, what they knew is what is being slowly and in a very kind of a scratching the surface manner, the science is discovering today. Okay, all those things will be there. We will, with Swami's grace, we will start taking it up starting tomorrow. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Sante Sante Sante. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.